Welcome back as we continue our reading of Philip Yancey's The Bible Jesus Read. And we're in chapter 2. It's called Job, Seeing in the Dark. Let's continue. Yet despite all the echoes in modern literature, despite my own reliance on Job as I write about pain, despite the fact that all but a few pages of Job focus on the problem of pain, I have concluded that Job is not about the problem of pain at all. Details of suffering serve as ingredients of the story, the stuff of which it is made, not the central theme. A cake is not about eggs, milk, flour, and shortening. A chef merely uses those ingredients in a process of creating a cake. In the same way, Job is not about the vagaries of suffering, but merely uses those ingredients in the author's overall scheme. Seen as a whole, the book of Job is about faith. The story of one man selected to undergo a staggering ordeal by trial. His response presents a message that applies not just to suffering people, but to every person who lives on planet Earth. Chapters 3 through 37 of Job, which center on the issue of suffering, are preceded by the plot of the book as reported in chapters 1 and 2. And that plot affects the context of everything that follows. Most of the time, our visual faculties admit a narrow spectrum of natural light. We have no certain knowledge of what might be going on behind the scenes. Job temporarily lifts our blinders. Somewhat like Elisha's servant who suddenly saw the chariots of fire that had been surrounding him, we gain throughout this book a glimpse of supernatural activity normally hidden from view. It helps to think of Job as a mystery play, whodunit, detective story. We in the audience have showed up early for a press conference in which the director explains his work. Chapters 1 and 2. We learn in advance who did what in the play. And we understand that the personal drama on earth has its origin in a cosmic drama in heaven, the contest over Job's faith. Will Job believe in God or deny God? The author of Job is a born playwright, dispensing with the action in 2 chapters. He gravitates quickly to his own more natural form of dialogue. The curtains lower, and when they go up again, we see only the actors on the stage, who, confined within the play, have no knowledge of the omniscient point of view enjoyed by us in the audience. Although we know the answer to the whodunit questions, the star detective does not. From the outset, Job, unaware of the scenario that went on in the heavens, is trapped in the ingredients of the drama. Obsessed with suffering, he spends his time on stage trying to discover what we viewers already know. He scratches himself with shards of pottery and asks trenchant questions, the same questions asked by nearly everyone in great pain. Why me? What did I do wrong? What is God trying to tell me? For the audience, Job's whodunit question should be moot, for we already know the answers. What has Job done wrong? Nothing. God himself called Job blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil, in chapter 2, verse 3. Why is Job suffering? We know in advance that he is not being punished. Far from it, he has been selected as the principal subject in a great contest of the heavens. Job represents the very best of the species, and God is using him to prove to Satan that human beings' faith can be genuine and selfless, not dependent on God's good gifts. Such a cosmic contest poses its own problems, of course, but these are different problems that most people grapple with when unexpected suffering hits. By allowing us a glimpse behind the curtain in chapters 1 and 2, the author of Job forfeits all elements of narrative tension but one: the mystery of how Job will respond. In short, the only question of his faith remains In short, only the question of his faith remains in question, remains unanswered. It's a testament to the genius of the book, and a clue as to why it endures as a work of literature that we cannot forget chapters 1 and 2 and get swept up in Job's personal anguish. He struggles with the imponderables of suffering with such force that for the duration of the book, his questions become our questions. In his speeches, Job marshals every example of unfairness in the world that he can find. Those of us who know the full story, especially the ending, can miss the impact of those words of anguish. One does not expect to discover the arguments of God's greatest adversary, say Mark Twain's Letters from the Earth or Bertrand Russell's Why I'm Not a Christian, bound into the center of the Bible. Such, however, is characteristic of the Old Testament. As William Safire put it, the book of Job delights the irreverent, satisfies the blasphemous, and offers at least some comfort to the heretical. The contest. Many readers move quickly from the befuddling scene in chapters 1 and 2 to the friend's lofty discourses, God's grand nature, poetry, and the shockingly few, for all the attention they receive, rays of hope in Job's speeches. Yet behind all that follows, we must constantly remind ourselves, it looms the background setting of those first 2 chapters. The director has explained in advance the nature of the contest. Some commentators treat chapters 1 and 2 with a tone of mild embarrassment, giving the distinct impression they would prefer it to be Job, or prefer it if Job began with chapter 3. Novelist Virginia Woolf wrote a friend, I read the book of Job last night. I don't think God comes well out of it. The prologue shows God and Satan involved in, and you can almost see bluish marks on the commentary pages. Well, something resembling a wager. The two have kind of a bet going, in which God has stacked odds against himself. Poor Job must undergo a terrible ordeal in order to determine the winner between the 2 heavyweights. In a sense, Job must replay the original test of the Garden of Eden, with the bar raised higher. Living in paradise, Adam and Eve faced a best-case scenario for trusting God, who asked so little of them and showered down blessings. In a living hell, Job faces the worst-case scenario. God asks so much, while curses rain down on him. The contest posed between Satan and God is no trivial exercise. Satan's accusation that Job loves God only because you have put a hedge around him stands as an attack on God's character. It implies that God is not worthy of love in himself, that people follow God only because they get something out of it or are bribed to do so. In Satan's view, God resembles a politician who can win only by rigging the election, or a mafioso with a kept woman and not a devoted wife. People love God, said one priest, the way a peasant loves his cow, for the butter and the cheese it produces. Job's response after all the props of faith have been removed will prove or disprove Satan's challenge. A wealthy man, Job has much to lose if God stops blessing him. Will he continue to trust God even after he forfeits it all? And that's where we're going to end today. We'll see you again next week.